I just got three things to say. God bless our troops, God bless America, and gentlemen, start your engine!
Welcome to the Stire Sound podcast with your hosts, Trey, Stire, and Jack Noel.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 28 of the Stire Sound. We're here to talk about the Glendale Supercross Round 5 of the 2026 season, and the championship has flipped over completely. Hunter Lawrence, your new red plate holder, without having a main event win to his career, he is now in the lead of the championship over Ken Roczen. And speaking of Kenny, his first win of the season, his fourth win in Glendale, he is now back in the thick of the fight. Eli Tomac, now 8 down after his bad night. 450 class continues to be chaotic, continues to be topsy-turvy with the amount of talent, and the 250 class continues to be very predictable. We are here for episode 28. I am Trey Stire, your host. Thank you so much for listening. Wherever you're tuning in from, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeart Radio, we appreciate it. Make sure to spread the word. Tell a friend, tell a family member about our show. Joining me, as always, from the Dirt Legal Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team, Jack Noel. 450 class just continues to bring shocker after shocker, or unexpected moment after unexpected moment. And now Hunter Lawrence, you said he might leave Glendale with the win and the red plate. You got half of that correct. He did leave State Farm Stadium with the red plate, and now things are completely sideways after it looked like Eli Tomac was cruising along after the first few rounds.
Yeah, no, it's I'm just glad it doesn't seem like Tomac is hurt. Like that first couple laps, and he's just rolling around, and he's still hasn't gained any time on, the guy in last or in 21st or whatever. I was like, oh no, like just another Tampa situation where he's riding around with a broken hand or something like that, or whatever it was. But nonetheless, the championship is completely flipped on its head, and I'm really speechless, to be honest with you, just how tight everything is and how close the battles are going to be, and how there's realistically 5 guys that have a legitimate chance of potentially coming out as the 2026 Monster Energy Supercross champion.
At this point, it looks like you're correct. It's going to be a wild dash throughout the season, but I also got Tampa flashbacks. I'm glad I'm not the only one there. Just looking at the lap times and the charts and stuff, because I was starting to draft out my 450 Unsung Heroes article, Eli Tomac's fastest lap of the race was on lap 19 out of 20. I don't know if I've ever seen that in my life by anybody. But we will hop into things with the 450 class, and early on, it looked like it was going to be a great day from Eli Tomac once again. Fast in qualifying, of course. Wins his heat race. No real drama there. Jorge Prado, though, was the man in qualifying. First time in his career since moving to America that he's been the fastest on the board in qualifying. Then he goes out, wins his heat race. Joey Savacci, a fantastic weekend once again. Broken toe, no problem. He was shadowing Prado in that heat race. But then main event time, Tomac goes down. That's the big headline off the start. Collided with Christian Craig and a couple others. And as you mentioned, he got up a little bit slow. It seemed like, oh boy, is he hurt? Is he not quite all right? But then eventually, a few laps in, he started to get going, started to gain time a little bit more. Up front, it was Hunter Lawrence and Ken Roczen. And Hunter Lawrence, when you thought, oh, he's got the lead early, this could be the chance for the main event win. It's not. Ken Roczen gets around him and then cruises out front about 4 or 5 seconds in front for the win. 24th career win in the 450 Supercross division for Ken Roczen. Glendale, one of his best stadiums historically. Hunter Lawrence, for the 4th straight week, this is like 2024 and 2025 outdoors all over again. Second place for the number 96. And third place for Cooper Webb. Glendale, not one of his best stadiums, but he's riding a wave of momentum and has two really great rounds coming up right in front of him. Then you look at Eli Tomac. He was able to salvage some points, 10 points on the night with a 12th place finish, got Garrett Marchbanks on the last lap. But he went from a 4-point lead to, I believe, 8 back now. Hunter Lawrence is your points leader ahead of Ken Roczen. Everything has flipped around. Speaking of the points battle, Cooper Webb still creeping in there. He's 14 or 15 back, something like that. Chase Sexton, your other championship contender, he was off all night in Glendale. Weird day. Not one of those days where he crashes and gets off that way. It was just uncomfortable, it seemed like, for Chase Sexton. I believe 7th place finish for the number 4. Uncharacteristic, not that usual level of speed we're used to seeing out of Chase. But a wild main event. Hunter Lawrence, consistency, going 4-2-2-2-2 to start the season. Now he is the points leader. Eli Tomac having issues. Some other folks in that 450 class have had issues this year, but Hunter Lawrence has been rock solid so far. In terms of the racing action, it was okay. Nothing great, nothing crazy. This is not one of those races you'll look back in a few years and remember what happens necessarily. But a big night and a big shakeup in the 450 class. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And like you said, there could be 5 guys in this championship battle right now. I said 3 guys in our preview episode. Maybe I should have went farther than that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, Hunter Lawrence is giving me signs of like a Dungey almost, because he's kind of always been there. He gets decent starts. He stays up there with the pack. He's not really ever off the podium this year so far. And without Jet being there, it really does have like nobody's able to kind of get like a grip on the series of what it seems like. It looked like Tomac was going to do that. His momentum was slowed down a little bit at Anaheim 2 by Chase, and then obviously his crash at Arlington set him back a bit. And now this other crash at Phoenix, I mean, it's really kind of laying out to be quite the spectacle, in my opinion. And I really do think the first guy to kind of get in a groove and click off 4 or 5 race wins within, 8 or 9 races, these next 8 or 9 races coming up, that'll be the guy that probably ends up winning the title. The first guy to find a groove, that's consistently winning races and consistently on the podium. And so far, Hunter hasn't won yet, but I do think it's coming at some point. But the thing is I think he needs to win sooner rather than later to continue his, step towards potentially winning this title. So it's a lot of championship talk after Phoenix. The racing, like you said, wasn't very interesting. But granted, Ken Roczen getting the win, I think that throws his name right back on the top. I mean, he needed to get a win early. Like, I thought for sure, like, maybe last weekend after his first race, he could have got it done, but then he's able to back it up this weekend, and get the win after a tough weekend there. I think his mentality this year is very, like, loose. He's just kind of going with the flow, and I think it's a different Kenny than what we may have seen before, because I think when he comes in with that idea, like, I can win this title, like, he kind of is – sometimes you see him make big, big mistakes, and luckily this year it hasn't really happened. But I think now as we move on after he got his first win, I think it's going to be a little bit easier for Ken Roczen as long as he can stay out of the carnage, you could say, that we've seen kind of tarnish his championship hopes in the past. But Tomac seems to be okay. I think Tomac will still be in this fight. I think Tomac, if he can come out and win in Seattle or something like that, or win Daytona, whatever it is, these next couple of races are going to be very important for the championship. I think it's going to be a fight all the way to the end. But yeah, that's just my take on that. And I think for a guy like Chase, who they said on the broadcast that the team manager said he's not comfortable, and I really do kind of scratch my head at that sometimes of like, what are we doing? Like, are we making too many changes? I know he's very finicky with the motorcycle. It's like A2, he looked flawless. He was able to move his way from third to first, and was able to fight through the adversity of getting passed back, and was able to, regroup and rebound himself. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting off the gate well, which has also been a major struggle for him on the Kawasaki, it's going to make it really tough with how deep this field is. I mean, there's guys like, Anderson and Zavachi and some other riders like Aaron Plessinger and those guys. They're not easy to pass, They're not guys that are slouches. So it's very hard to pass these guys and go through a whole main event field and get back up to the top 5 all the time. And I think we saw that because I think he is a top 5 rider, no doubt. But when he starts at 15th like he did this past weekend, it's going to be really, really tough for him to, if a guy like Ken, Hunter, or Eli's out front, he's not going to be able to chase him down, unfortunately. I just don't think so. But nonetheless, it's very, very interesting, to say the least, on how he's doing and what exactly is going on with that motorcycle. I think he needs to find a area where he's comfortable and kind of be able to move within that. Don't try to do too much and don't try to make big swings in between the weeks, because it's getting to the point where we can't do that anymore. So I'm interested to see when this series turns east. Even, this round in Seattle is really going to be a wet, rainy, probably moist race. The dirt's going to get, it's going to be deep and rutted and stuff like that. So it'll be a change, I think, which I think he's better in those kind of conditions. I don't think he's that good at blue groove style tracks like a guy like Ken Roczen is. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. I think Cooper Webb's definitely, what is he, only 15 back or something like that? And I think Cooper Webb's looking at Seattle like he's hungry, man. And I think this is a race he knows he can win at. He's been good there the last couple of years. We've seen some unreal battles there with him and Chase the last couple of years, and I think it'll be somewhat of the same for him. I think he'll see himself at the front, and I think if he's able to get a win, another win, I think it's going to be, it really does mix everything up. But I think Chase is in a bit of a panic mode championship-wise, because at the end of the day, I think this is his time to win, and if he can get another title, it's going to be now. I think he has the ability. If he's got 3 years on this Kawasaki, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough for him to come back. But I think he can turn it around. It's just going to take some mental strength, I think, for him to come back. What do you think, Trey?
I agree with that, and he's just a paradox, man. Some weeks, like you said, he shows up like Anaheim 2 and just flawless, it seems like, working his way through people, gets out front and then just cruises. And then this week, he was just a 7th place guy all night, it seemed like. I'm not sure what the fix for Chase Sexton is. We've always said that mentally and confidence-related things will be the determining factor a lot of times in how he feels. But I'm like you. I don't know how he can feel amazing one weekend and carve through the pack, and then the next week just completely different. And I know he's very finicky, and other people, Chad Reed, I feel like, was like that in the past, where he would switch manufacturers and just never satisfied at one point. It's so hard to say, but there are so many close folks in that championship battle right now. It could go to anyone, and we saw what happened in Tomac. That could happen to anybody. Kenny had a bad race at Anaheim too. Yes, it wasn't as bad as Tomac crashing, but he still went down early, bad start, then got up to 8th. You see it with Tomac now. Webb had a couple bad races. Chase has had a bad race. Hunter, you haven't seen that yet, but it's also very early in the season. We're only 5 rounds out of 17. This might be a situation where it was like the 250E class last year, where you had Vial, Hampshire, and Hammaker, and all of those guys had a bad round or two. And it was who can capitalize and strike while the iron's hot in the end. Now Hunter Lawrence has the red plate, but this is Cooper Webb territory. I said it last week. Seattle, Arlington, those 2 tracks are very, very favorable to Cooper Webb. So we'll see what exactly happens this weekend, but I talked last week and I've talked the last couple weeks. I said before Houston that if Ken Roczen didn't get a win before Houston, I was essentially saying, hey, he's not going to be in that championship battle. But he does get the win in Glendale, which was right after the threshold I saw it. He's 5 points away from the lead. As you said, there's 5 guys in it right now. I'm still not convinced of anybody being a clear championship favorite, but I'm definitely a little bit more likely to say that Ken Roczen might be back in this title fight. Awesome to see him get the win. Of course, Larry Brooks diagnosed with cancer as well. A very sentimental and important win for the HEP team after all of Larry's help, and of course a guy who's been team owner, team manager, a lot of roles through the years and been a very legendary part of the sport. But I think Kenny is back into this thing. Will he be able to keep that form for all 17 rounds? And I think that's really been the question for so many years, because you look at a season like 2021, his last World Championship contender season, he just kind of fell off around Arlington or so and wasn't the same. Last year, he had, like you said, the crash at Tampa where he collided with a couple lappers. I mean, there are so many different factors for Kenny, I feel like. But this is positive signs once again. Not quite on the red plate, but he's only a few points back. If he can get through these next couple rounds, hover around the podium, get solid points, then go to some of these other places where he's won at in the past. He finally got his first win at Daytona last year. Maybe he can bring some of that confidence in there. He's won Indianapolis several times in the past. St. Louis, I believe, is where he got his first win after his big injuries. There are so many rounds that are going to be kind of flip-flopping favorably for these guys. Webb's going to have some rounds where he's legit. Daytona is always Tomac territory, always very good there. Chase Sexton has won at some of these other rounds coming up later in the year and has a lot of success. I don't know. There are so many different variables in this series right now. And with Chase Sexton, it's just frustrating to me to see so much talent, and then it seems like it's kind of a flip of the switch thing. One little thing, it seems like, can either set Sexton up for a dominant win, or one little slight mistake can throw off his entire day. As far as the championship goes, in terms of who's got the upper hand, at this point, I'm not ready to say anybody. I'd like to say Cooper Webb more than anybody else, just because of the consistency and that bulldog mentality of where if he just lingers around and he hangs around, usually he's able to sneak up there and get the job done. But you look at Hunter Lawrence, like you said, he's doing the Ryan Dungey consistency model. I think back to the 2017 season when he fought with Tomac, and ET3 was reeling off wins like crazy, but Dungey never finished off the podium all year or something like that, until Vegas, I think. He was just consistency to death. If Eli was winning, he was finishing second or third. There are so many variables of this series right now. I'm not sure what it's going to take for one of these guys to really seize control of the championship, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this because, as I mentioned, so many different tracks that are very favorable for the different level of guys. Hunter Lawrence doesn't have that 450 level experience. We can't really say, oh, this track or this area could be really, really good for him. He's just got to stay consistent. But you look at the schedule, you think Seattle, Cooper Webb, Arlington, Cooper Webb, Daytona, Eli Tomac, Birmingham, could be a Cooper Webb or a Chase Sexton night. You look at some of these other rounds throughout the season. I mean, you get down toward the end, Chase Sexton's won a couple times in Denver. Chase Sexton won last year in Salt Lake City. I think he's won 3 times in Salt Lake City on the 450, and of course he's won championships there on the 250. Cleveland's a brand new stadium, so nobody has really raced in that one before. Detroit's kind of up in the air because it's a little topsy-turvy every year. I really just don't know what to think about some of these championship races.
No, absolutely. I mean, you look at like the whole schedule as a whole, and it's everybody's got a track where they seem to be dominant at and successful at, and it's really, really tough to say who can kind of like turn the tide to their favor. And I, like you said, I'm not ready to pick anybody like to really assert themselves as a championship favorite. It's really tough to see, who could potentially be that guy. You know what I mean? So these next couple races, I think leading up, I think these next 3 races before Daytona, it's if anybody can click off 2 or 3 wins or whatever it is and continue momentum and stay on the podium, I think it's going to be who can gain points when another guy's not having a good night. I think if Hunter Lawrence can stay on that podium, I think he's still, even if he doesn't get a win, he's still right there. And if he can continue to hold that red plate, it's going to be tough. So I'm very, very interested to see who can assert themselves. It's really tough to say anybody because it's so up in the air. But yeah, no, I mean, Ken Roczen did a great job doing it, getting it done when he needed to this past weekend, and Cooper Webb staying on the, getting on the podium. He did well. I mean, he takes his medicine when he has to at a race like Glendale where he knows he's not very good. It really hasn't been very good in the past, and he gains points on Tomac, and he puts himself back in the fight in the talk, and so for I think the biggest question mark I think on everybody's mind is Chase Sexton, because he's the guy that we know can win. Like we know he can win. And if he can't get going, I think he can almost walk away from the championship, and it's like kind of disappointing if he can't get on a roll. But these other four guys, I mean, it's really up to how these guys can end up performing. So I'm really interested to see how it all plays out. But yeah, no, I'm also curious to see what you think about other guys like an Anderson, a Savatgy, an Aaron Plessinger, a Malcolm Stewart, guys like that could also insert themselves in a sense of not necessarily competing for the title, but could potentially steal a win when these guys aren't, nobody seems to have found a groove yet. Can one of these guys steal a win and kind of play spoiler and get in the way a little bit and potentially kind of swing the tide towards another person or however it may go? I'm curious to see if anybody else can step up to the table as well, being that this championship's so wide open, and maybe another guy that is completely off our radar can kind of insert themselves in this title talk as well. Because I mean, 25 points at this rate doesn't seem like that many, So I'm interested to see what you have to say, and yeah, that's what I have. I mean, it's tough to guess who can be the next or who can, build momentum.
I don't think anybody outside of that top five range can fight for the championship just because it seems like those five guys are the ones really fighting for the podiums every week. But I think at some point this year, we'll see one of those outside faces steal a win. Going into the year, I would have said Malcolm Stewart would 100% win a main event, but being banged up from Anaheim, it seems like that's just continued, and of course he pulls off a little early this weekend. So it sucks to see because you think that Malcolm, especially the speed he showed in Paris, a win last year in Tampa, that he could be in the favorite. I think Jason Anderson, personally, would be the most likely of some of those guys you just named to maybe steal a win. He's got some good starts a few times and run with the front guys. He hasn't necessarily had the speed of a Sexton or a Tomac, but he has put himself in good positions at a few of the races. He also had a bad start this weekend. But then you think about Jorge Prado, who can get good starts. I don't think Jorge will win, but I think Jorge can definitely steal podiums, and I stick by that. I think one thing you have to look at is weather as well, because if we have a mud race, I think that could really change up the order. And of course, you think about the mud, and everybody thinks of Aaron Plessinger first, and understandably so. He won a bit of wet conditions in San Diego for his first win. Last year's mud fest at Foxborough, he dominated. But then you look at some of the other results. Shane McElrath got his first career podium at Foxborough. A lot of mud racing is who can get out front and get out clean. I know he's not back racing yet, but what if we have a mud round later in the year and Justin Barcia is fully healthy? That's a guy who's won a bunch of mud races, whether it was A1, East Rutherford on the gas, some outdoor rounds. I'm pretty sure Barcia's won a couple muddy outdoors as well. Budds Creek 2015 on the JGR bike, I think. Pretty sure he won Unadilla 2018 when it was muddy. There are so many guys with so much talent in the field. I just don't think the way the top five have been riding, or I should say the way they ride at their peak when they are on one, I don't think anybody is going to necessarily break into the championship fight. But at some point this year, we're going to get some kind of wild card chaos round where somebody you don't really think of is going to pop up there and win. Whether a couple guys go down off the start or maybe it's a weather affected race, that would be the main scenario, I think, for somebody to go up there and steal a win. I think on dry, standard conditions that we see every weekend, Jason Anderson would be the most likely because of his speed and his pace. But once again, it's so hard to say anything right now with certainty because of the level of the class. Who would you have on your list? Because, I mean, there are so many guys, like you said. Could it be Plessinger? Could it be Anderson? Justin Cooper? Could it be Joey Savatgy's riding really well? I wouldn't pick him for a win necessarily, but he's been very impressive this season. Barcia could come back, I don't think we know anything at this point.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's going to be. I think there will be a race where it's conditions are whack and it's not sure what's going to happen and stuff like that. So anybody can win a race like that. I think. I mean, you look at, like you said, Foxborough. Aaron Plessinger wins. Other mud races, Barsha's won if he's able to come back. I mean, it's really tough to say anybody, to be honest with you. But I think a guy like Jorge Prado is, in my opinion, I know you don't think he's set for a win. I don't necessarily have full belief in that yet, but I think he's a guy that could definitely play spoiler with being in the podium area. Like, he gets good starts and he's able to kind of stay up there for the most part, like we saw this past weekend in Glendale. I mean, he rode it in for fifth and it was a solid ride. Like, it wasn't like, and there was a big group of guys between five and like ninth place that were like all kind of in a pack all night. And I think he would be the guy, in my opinion, that would play most spoiler. I don't necessarily think he could win a race. Maybe if it's a mud race, I think we could see him be, up there if he gets a good start. But granted, I think he's the one guy that is consistently up there enough to make a difference in, playing a part of a couple points for a couple guys, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, that's the guy, I think. But it's really hard to say because we've had 4 winners in 5 rounds. I mean, we could have a new winner next weekend with a guy like Hunter, obviously, that makes 5 winners in 6 rounds. And then you go to around like Arlington or Daytona, it could be anything, or like a Triple Crown. We saw Cooper Webb didn't win a race and won the race. So it's very. I'm interested to see how it all plays out. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough, but this championship is wide open and it's anybody's game to take control of it. Really, I think that the first guy to be able to do that and start building leads and start getting them in the top 3 consistently and not losing points, but they're gaining points, is going to be the guy that asserts themselves as the favorite.
I agree with that assessment. And it seems like now, even though we had so many questions after Anaheim won, it seems like there are also more questions, at least in the 450 division. Then when you shift focus to the 250 division, it's not very fun to watch, if I'm being quite honest. I mean, I'm sure the Deegan fans are enjoying it, but I mean, it's just Hayden Deegan taking the belt to his competition every single weekend. 4th straight win of the year in Glendale, 4 straight fastest qualifier awards as well. I think it was a very impressive ride from Levi Kitchen, perhaps the best ride of his career, even though he's won several main events and several overalls outdoors. But I mean, working through the pack the way he did and to charge up and get within a few seconds of Deegan, very, very impressive in my opinion. And Jack, I'll give you credit. Of course, we do podium predictions later on, but you said the 250 podium in Glendale would be the same exact podium it was in Houston, and you were exactly correct. Hayden Deegan, Levi Kitchen, Cameron McAdoo, your podium incorrect order, plus you nailed the 250 wild card we had, and we'll talk about this more later, but for the first time in Stire Sound history, somebody has completely nailed a class's prediction. So bravo. Well done to you, but in terms of the racing action, we mentioned 450 racing wasn't great. 250 racing might have been even worse because going into it, it's like, oh, you know Hayden's going to win. You know he's going to get out front. It's just a matter of when. And he rips the whole shot, gets out front immediately, and it's like, well, this race is over. Levi's in the back, but charging from basically last to second place was very impressive. Max Anstey has just fallen off the radar. 8th place, I mean, he got a bad start, but you see Levi able to push through the pack like he was doing around McAdoo, Ryder D, Mosman, the Club MX guys. Max Anstey just finished 8th. He wasn't able to push up like that. He didn't get around either Club MX guy. I mean, he couldn't get past Yoder, and I want to give Yoder credit. I'm not saying he's a slouch, but you think on paper, Max Anstey, Hunter Yoder, you'd think Max Anstey would win that battle 10 times out of 10 most of the time, but he doesn't. And it's been a very strange fall off for him, but Monster Energy sweeps the podium again. Of course, a star guy in first, 2 Pro Circuit guys, second and third. Lux Turner, shout out to him for leading laps in the heat race. That was a cool story. A couple guys getting their first career main events. Shout out to Revan Gordon and Colby Kopp. Congratulations to them, but it's just not very fun right at the moment watching the 250 class. I think 250 East is going to be entertaining. because there are so many guys who are going for their first championship or going for their first real glimpse at fighting for a number one plate. And then you see the West Coast, it's just rinse and repeat every weekend. Qualifying, Deegan's fastest. Heat race, Deegan wins. Main event, Deegan wins. And then he's running out of artillery as well. He was going finger guns last week. Now he's doing bow and arrow. Maybe he shoots a cannon if he wins Seattle. I'm not sure. He's starting to run out of things that can shoot. But Hayden Deegan wins again. I don't think there's much else to say, honestly.
No, yeah, the 250 class is far gone. I mean, like I said last week, I'm more interested to see if he races any 450 rounds, to be completely honest with you. But I think Levi has the speed to compete with Deegan. Obviously, I think it's pretty adamant that he won't make it to that he won't be able to win the championship. I think he's too far gone unless Deegan has a crazy pulls an Austin Faulkner from 20 whatever year that was, 2019 or 2020, whatever. I think it's 2019 it was, and obviously, gets hurt or something, which I don't want to see that happen to anybody, but that's the only way I think a guy like Levi has a chance to win the title necessarily. But I think he could steal one from Deegan. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this weekend. I don't think, and maybe like an East-West if Levi gets out front or something, but he's got to figure out them starts to make it a little bit more interesting, because I think if Levi does start up there with Deegan, I think it will be interesting. I don't think it'll be as much of a snooze fest as it was this past weekend in Glendale. But yeah, the 250 class is pretty far gone. I'm excited to get to next weekend when we can talk about the East Coast, and I think that class will be it'll switch up a lot. There's not like in my head, there's not like a clear favorite to win that title. Maybe Shimoda, but Shimoda is coming back from injury, so I'm not sure how he'll be. But nonetheless, I think it'll be an interesting next weekend to see if Levi can get up front. I think he'll be feeling confident being around his home crowd and stuff like that, so that might help him, and he's won there before. But yeah, no, I'm very, very interested to see how the 450 class develops more than the 250, that's for sure. But yeah, no, I was stoked to get all four spots right. I'll tell you that much. I'm can't say it's easy, but it's pretty easy to pick two of the three podium guys. I'll say that much in the 250 West class. That third place can be a little bit shakier. We saw McAdoo put in a late race charge to pass Mosman, but I think if we look towards next year, I think the 250 class will kind of be back at like a level playing field where anybody can win either coast. There's not really a favorite. I mean, somebody will probably insert themselves into that conversation, but nonetheless, it'll be interesting to watch, and I'm excited for next year.
We're going to go ahead and get right into the predictions, and I don't think I really have to say the fact that Jack has a massive points lead now after his triumphant weekend. Crockett Myers was his wild card pick that got the job done, so shout out to the Crockett Rocket there. I did nail a couple things right, but Jack just blew me away with his correct 250 predictions.
We were in a little bit of a fight. I don't know if you noticed that, but you picked Wageman to get 14th, and Wageman got 13th, so you were pretty darn close.
And Marchbanks got 13th too.
Yeah,
right there, man.
Yeah, close.
One spot away from both of them. I still don't think I've hit a wild card at all yet. I remember Benoit Paturel hit for you last year, and you got to be the first one to do that. And man, I'm just struggling out here, struggling and really bad in RM Fantasy, man. I don't even want to talk about that score this year. I need to find my 2023 outdoor levels of fantasy success when I was top 25 in the world in RM Fantasy and like top 100 in PulpMX for a little bit. I was great that year, but I don't know what happened. My podium predictions, though, for Seattle, I'll go 250 class first since it's very predictable. Surprise, surprise, I have Hayden Deegan first. Surprise, surprise, I have Levi Kitchen second. I'm going to go Mosman P3 this week. I've been trying to switch it up. I had Max Anstey. He let me down. I don't really want to pick the same podium as it's been the last 2 weeks. I don't think we're going to have that 3 times in a row. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go Mosman for the final podium spot this week. Our wild card is 11th, so just outside of the top 10. And I'm going to go with Lux Turner. He was 11th this weekend. He's been 11th a couple times. He's getting better. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to go with Lux. I think he gets a top 10 this weekend. I'm going to go Carson Mumford for 11th place on the AO Power Sports KTM. There's so many guys. You have that kind of top 8 range that's cemented, it seems like, as long as nothing happens. Deegan, then Kitchen, then you have like the gaggle of McAdoo, Ryder D, Mosman, Anstey. Plus you have the Club MX guys. Pretty solidified top 8 in my opinion. And then you have that like 9 to 15 range where it's Parker Ross, Lux Turner, Varese, Wageman, Carson Mumford, Avery Long, a few guys that could get in there, mix it up. I'm going to go Mumphy P11 this week in the 250 class, and I'm just going to go ahead and do my 450 ones as well. I picked him last week at Glendale because I hadn't picked him all year. I'm definitely picking him at Seattle the way the last 2 years have gone. Something tells me that history likes to repeat itself, and I'm going to go a little bit differently from the RM Fantasy picks I just made. I am having Cooper Webb win in both of those. Cooper Webb is my pick for Seattle because of his recent success. What are the odds we get a Cooper Webb Chase Sexton 1, 2, 3 years in a row? I'm willing to try it out for this show. Chase Sexton P2 is my pick there. And I'm going to go Eli Tomac for third. Solid recovery round. I've only picked Hunter Lawrence for one single podium this year. Maybe if I keep picking against him, maybe eventually he'll win a race. Maybe we can finally see him on the top step of the podium if I keep excluding him from the top 3. But I think we could see another Webb Sexton showdown. They say history repeats itself. 2024 and 2025, Chase Sexton, Cooper Webb had an epic duel for the win at Seattle. Let's make it 3 in a row, man. I want to see it again. I got Cooper Webb. I got the defending champ on top, though, once again. Webb, Sexton, Tomac, my podium predictions. I think Hunter Lawrence and Ken Roczen will be right there, barring anything crazy. And then for wild card, 11th place at Seattle. He's better than 11th place, but he's been banged up. If he races, Malcolm Stewart is my 11th place pick. I will go ahead and throw one out there just in case Malcolm doesn't race. I think he should be good to go, but if Malcolm doesn't race, I'm going to take Dylan Ferrandis for 11th. But Mookie is my pick as long as he is out there able to compete and nothing goes wrong.
Some solid choices right there. I think you are onto something whenever you say history does repeat itself. But I don't think it's going to be Chase Sexton in that battle this year. And I don't think Cooper Webb's going to get the win, but I think he will be up there. I'm going to go Hunter Lawrence to get his first ever career win in Seattle. Stamps his name on the red plate, says, I'm here to fight. I'm going to go Hunter Lawrence. I'm going to get Cooper Webb in second, and I'm going to go Chase Sexton in third. I don't love putting Chase on my podium, but I do think like it's hard not to because he is so talented and like can realistically win any weekend. It's tough to not. I mean, tough to leave a guy like Tomac and Roczen off the podium, but I don't think Roczen's able to back up necessarily what he was able to do this past weekend in Glendale. But I do think we see Hunter Lawrence back out to a good start. I don't think Cooper Webb's going to be right there in the beginning, but I think he's going to pressure Hunter at the end. But I do think Hunter Lawrence is going to get the best of him. So I got Hunter Lawrence winning. I picked him last week and he was close, but I got him. I think he gets it done this week. I think we see 5 winners in 6 rounds. And I got Coop and then Chase. And then my 11th place prediction, I'm going to go Garrett Marchbanks. I'm going to take a note out of your book. I think Marchbanks improves off his 13th in Glendale and gets 11th this weekend in Seattle. For the 250 class, I'm picking Levi Ketchum for the win. I think he upsets the Deegs. I think Deegs will get second, no doubt. And then I'm going to go a little off the radar here. I'm going to go Maximus Voland for P3. I think Voland gets on the podium. I think he's been fast enough to be up there, and I think if he can get up there early, I think this track will suit his style. I don't think a guy like Mosman or Ryder D, or did Mosman win there last year?
No, that was Cole Davies' first win.
Oh, Cole Davies, that's who it was. But yeah, so I got I have Maximus Voland on my podium. I think that's a solid pick. I think it's around that. It's kind of East Coast style, a little deeper dirt. I think he'll be good. And then for my 11th place pick, that's a tough one in the West Coast class because there's so many guys that are like halfway decent. I'm gonna go Parker Ross for 11th, even though he's been pretty solid these last couple races. Had a really good heat race going until he crashed. But yeah, I think we'll see Parker Ross in 11th. I don't think he's that good in the deep stuff. So we'll see how he does this weekend in Seattle. Hopefully he gets 11th and we can go perfect once again. But yeah, that's my predictions for the 250 class. It's pretty hard to leave. It's pretty much a guarantee to have Levi and Deegan on your podium every weekend. So
I love the Volan pick. I had him on the podium earlier in the year. I think he's due for one at some point. It's bound to happen. I think he's too good to not get a podium. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit different this week in terms of predictions, but this has been episode number 28 of the Stire Sound, aka the We Don't Know Anything About the 450 class episode. For Jack Noel, I am Trey Stire. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, we have another great round of racing in Seattle this weekend. The Super Bowl champion city now. Congrats to the Seahawks and Seahawks fans out there. But this has been episode number 28, and the Stire Sound is fading out.